Hey, how you guys doing? You stay right there as we have to show you this one last thing. All right. Hey, welcome to Financial Sins. This is our segment for unsung heroes of Black history. Listen, there's a lot of folks that just in history never recognized, regardless of their nationality, they just weren't recognized. But I want to recognize a couple of people, and I want to read a little bit about them. And the reason I want to do this is because they need recognition. Hey, but before we get too far along, I would like to recognize some folks who are paying for this. Yeah, they're paying for this, right? All right, so I want to share a little bit about them because I think you'll enjoy it. All right, who is it? I want to talk to you about these folks called One Price Cleaners, Garden City. All right, they're in Garden City, Georgia. All right, they're at the farmers market right in that area, right next to Highway 80. They're Black-owned and operated, best prices in town. You definitely want to check them out, okay? Definitely want to check them out. The last ones I want to talk to you about, if you need an attorney, you're trying to get some legal stuff done, you need to check these folks out. Davis, Bosman, and Johnson Law, the law firm that gets great results. Their number going across the bottom of the screen, 912-225-1600. Listen, they have offices in Savannah, Atlanta, and Statesboro. Yeah, they're trying to cover everything, y'all. www.dbjlawyers.com is their website. I'm your host. I'm Anthony Murray. It's such a pleasure to be with you today. And we want to really encourage you to do something. Share. Yeah, we want you to let folks know that we are here. Why? Because we're here. We have vision, we have something planned, and we are determined to help get it across to you today. Okay. All right. So with that said, I want to make sure that you are ready for what we have going on. Hey, that's my information if you need to reach me right there. All right. There it is right there. Okay. Have you guys ever heard of Bishop Richard Allen? We're going to talk about him in just a minute, but I want to read an excerpt from an Independence Day address given by none other than Frederick Douglass. And this was back July the 5th, 1852. Okay. Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? Am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious honoring. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? If so, there is a parallel to your conduct. And let me warn you that it is dangerous to copy the example of a nation whose crimes, towering up to heaven, were thrown down by the breath of the Almighty, burying that nation in irrevocable ruin. I can today take up the plaintive lament of a peeled and woe-smitten people. Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains, heavy and grievous, yesterday are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. If I forget, if I do not faithfully remember those bleeding children of sorrow this day, may my right hand forget her cunning, and may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. To forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treason, most scandalous and shocking, and would make me a reproach before God and the world. My subject then, fellow citizens, is American slavery. I shall see this day and its popular characteristics from the slave's point of view. Standing there, identified with the American bondman, making his wrongs mine, I do not hesitate to declare with all my soul that the character and conduct of this nation never looked blacker to me than on this 4th of July. Whether we turn to the declarations of the past or to the professions of the present, the conduct of the nation seems equally hideous and revolting. America is false to the past, false to the present, and solemnly binds herself to be false to the future. What am I to argue that it is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with iron, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters? Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. I have better employment for my time and strength than such arguments would imply. Go where you may, search where you will, roam through all the monarchies and deposiums of the old world. Travel through South America, search out every abuse, and when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say with me that the revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy America reigns without a rival. Frederick Douglass. Wow! That brother did not bite his tongue. That man did not bite his tongue. Well, anyway, those are excerpts from Mr. Frederick Douglass. You know, he ought to be on Mount Rushmore, right? Those were excerpts from his 4th of July address in Rochester, New York, back in 1852. Frederick was a former slave. all right, who escaped. And that's how he got his freedom. All right. So, Araya, thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us. David, thank you for being with us today. Hey, I certainly appreciate you guys. You know, there's so many people in African American history that I can't cover them all, but I want to read a little bit about them. Bishop Richard Allen, he lived 1760 and he left this life, according to records, 1831. All right, I just want to read a little bit about him. All right, hold on one moment. All right. Hey, it's so good to have so many of you guys here today. All right, Richard Allen was one of the greatest Black religious leaders in American history. His leadership and organizational skills were phenomenal. Born of slave parents in 1760 in Philadelphia, Allen taught himself to read and write after having been sold to another master in Dover, Delaware. All right, isn't this what Frederick Douglass was just talking about? There, with the permission of his master, he joined the Methodist Society and was soon heading the society's meetings. His owner's offer to allow Allen to purchase his freedom spurred Allen to work as a day laborer, brickmaker, and teamster. Teamster. Interesting, right? He worked until he had earned the 2,000 continental dollars it took to make good the offer. Allen served as a wagon driver during the Revolutionary War, and in 1786, after serving as an itinerant preacher, he returned to Philadelphia to begin his ministry. When Allen and Reverend Absalom Jones went to Philadelphia's St. George Methodist Episcopal Church on a Sunday, November 1786, a new chapter in Black history unfolded. Allen had been organizing Black prayer meetings and encouraging greater Black attendance at St. George's. As he told it, when the colored people began to get numerous in attending the church, they moved us from the seats we usually sat on and told us to go in the gallery. The meeting had begun. And just as we got to the seats, the elder said, "Let us pray." We had not been long upon our knees before I heard considerable scuffing and low talking. I raised my head up and saw one of the trustees having hold of the Reverend Absalom Jones, pulling him up off his knees and saying, "You must get up. You must not kneel here." Mr. Jones replied, "Wait until the prayer is over." The trustee would not wait. Before the service ended, every Black man, woman, and child, led by Allen, walked out of the church. It was the first mass demonstration staged by Blacks in America. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine? This is back when you stage something like that, especially as a person of color, you could lose your life. Well, it didn't seem to bother them. All right. And look at what happened here. As news of the demonstration spread, Blacks in Boston, New York, and other northern cities walked out of segregated white institutions and created their own. 5 months later, in April 1787, Allen and Jones responded by creating the Free African Society. The society's varied features were those of a mutual aid society, a church, a political structure, and an insurance company. Would you listen, man? I'm in the insurance industry. This is my first time ever hearing of this. What about you? Hey, look, this is some good history. All right. These men and women that I'm going to share with you today, you may not have ever heard of, or maybe you did. Years ago, I used to teach at a high school, and I shared some of this information that I'm sharing with you. I shared with the students then, and I was only at that point. I was a long-term substitute teacher. All right, and the history teacher, what was he? He was the department head of history. That's what he was. He stood outside my door and he listened. At the end of the class, he asked me, would I be interested in taking over that class and teaching history? Well, hey, look, I had no certification. How are they going to ask me to teach history without any certification? But see, this information is valuable. Now, here it is. This is one of the first, probably the first, Black-owned insurance company in the Americas, maybe even in the world. All right, so there's a lot of people that people of color, of African descent, that did a lot of things that they just were never credited for. All right, so 5 years afterwards, its membership decided to build a church. We're still talking about Bishop Richard Allen. This decision was not immediately acted upon because a severe yellow fever epidemic, this is back in the 1700s, yellow fever was a horrible plague, and when it hit hard, man. It interrupted the plan. As others fled the city, Allen focused the Free African Society on the dreary business of recruiting Blacks to serve as nurses and undertakers. Wow. After the epidemic had run its course, the church building plan was resumed, and on July 17th, 1794, the Bethel Church, which later became the first African Methodist Episcopal, in other words, AME. Now, those of you that are African, that are AME, African Methodist Episcopal, you should know about Bishop Allen because he is the founder. All right, so that congregation was established under Allen's organizational leadership by 1816. The AME Church boasted a national membership with Allen ordained as bishop, the first Black bishop in America. Allen was a staunch supporter of the anti-slavery societies, president of the first Negro Convention, and a contributing correspondent in the first Black newspaper, Freedom's Journal. Writing for the Journal, he eloquently opposed the American colonialization society on the basis that its philosophies of removal of African or Afro-Americans from the United States was based on racial prejudice rather than benevolence. Yet another of Allen's major accomplishments was the organization of the Society of Free People of Color for promoting instruction and school education of children of African descent. Hey, guys, let me point something out to you that a lot of people of color don't realize. Did you know that some of the white folks of that day were actually trying to form something to ship Africans back to Africa? Now, of course, those that were slave owners smashed that idea. Why? Because free labor was good for them. Okay? Bishop Allen died on March 26, 1831. Throughout his life, Allen continued to press vigorously for the abolishment of slavery. He established himself as one of the giants of Black history and indeed of American history. The African Methodist Episcopal Church, which he founded, is today the oldest and largest formal institution in Black America. Wow. Wow. There is nothing else that Black people or people of African descent could say, this is ours. Now, the AME Church is still around today. Matter of fact, I have family members that go to the AME Church in Savannah, Georgia. All right. So that's about Bishop Allen, man. Wow. There's just so many people. I want to talk to you about Osborne Anderson, who lived between 1830 and 1871. If we have time, we may even talk about Henry Bibb, who lived from 1815 to 1854, or even William Wells Brown. He lived from 1814 to 1884, or Reverend Alexander Crummell, lived from 1819 to 1898. All right, we're talking about people that not many, if any, have heard about. What about Martin Delany? Oh, I know you heard about Martin Delany. All right, 1812 to 1885. All right, some of these guys served in the military. All right, let's keep going. And you heard about Frederick Augustus Douglass, of course. I just read an excerpt from him. And what about Charlotte Fortin? All right, 1835 to 1915. Or the Reverend Henry Highland Garnet. Oh, man. Oh, that brother was powerful. That man was powerful. Listen, a lot of folks don't know about these people. All right. You heard about Prince Hall. We'll read about him, maybe. Or Josiah Henson. All right. He's a, oh man, look, there's just a lot of people. John Jones or William Neal. It's just these people stood firmly against slavery. Firmly. All right. And they were innovators. They had some awesome things that they did, that they contributed to the American society. All right. So, I mean, it's people like Sarah Redmond, who was an abolitionist, a physician, and a physician. All right. So, look, man, there's just a lot of people. We may read about her as well, or Maria Stewart. Also public speaker. Okay, I want to read about some of these people. William Still. Okay, William Still. And look, the list just keeps going on. Nat Turner. Everybody heard about Nat Turner. All right, he's a short life, but man, did he do something. All right, David Walker. You ever hear of him? All right, David Walker. Okay, so there's just a lot. There's just a lot of people. Samuel Ward. All right, Samuel Ward. Look, man, there's just a lot of people. A lot of people. A lot of people. I wish I had time to go into all of them and to read all of this history to you. I don't have that kind of time. What I do want to do right now, though, I want to go back to share with you a little bit about our advertisers. All right. One Price Cleaners, Garden City, Georgia, at the farmers market on Highway 80. Easy to find, really easy to find. Black owned and operated. Best prices in town. Absolute best prices in town. Okay. And then there's Davis, Bosman, and Johnson Law. All right, the law firm that gets great results. Their telephone numbers going across, okay, 912-225-1600. They have offices in Savannah, Atlanta, and Statesboro. All right, Savannah, Atlanta, and Statesboro. They have a website, very important website, www.dbjlawyers.com. Okay, so hey, you want to take the advantage of that. You want to take the advantage of that. Okay, and really show your support. And if you need help, if you need to know who these folks are, just holler at me. I'll be more than happy to get that information to you. Okay. Once again, I want to encourage you to share. Reach out and touch somebody. Let them know we're on the air. This is our unsung heroes of Black history. I want to read something about William Wells Brown, just a little bit. All right. William Wells Brown was a physician, author, and historian. He was born in Lexington, Kentucky. The year of his birth is given variously as 1814 or 1815 or 1816. They're uncertain. All right. And back then, especially when someone was born a slave, they didn't keep accurate records. They tried, but a lot of records were destroyed. All right. A lot of records were destroyed. Okay. All right. Let me read a little bit about him. Brown's mother was a slave and his father was a slaveholder. It was rumored that Daniel Boone was his grandfather. Whoa. Didn't see that one coming. In 1834, Brown escaped from slavery to Ohio, where he was provided refuge by a Quaker named Wells Brown, who suggested that William use his name. Thus, he acquired the middle name of Wells and the surname of Brown. He settled in Ohio, where he labored hard to educate himself. One of his jobs as a steward aboard steamboats on Lake Erie enabled him to help other fugitives. All right, and you know what? When slaves escaped, that's what they were considered, fugitives. How are you going to be a fugitive when you're running for your life from somebody who had you illegally bound up and chains? Now, I know the political law made it legal, but the heavenly law never made it legal. Okay? All right. So, let me keep reading. In 1834, he married Elizabeth Schooner of Cleveland. The Browns had 3 daughters, one of whom died in infancy. His youngest daughter, Josephine, became one of his biographers. In 1845, William and Elizabeth separated, and he took custody of their 2 children. Wow. In 1843 to 1849, William Wells Brown served the abolitionist movement as a lecturing agent for anti-slavery societies in New York and Massachusetts, and was an Underground Railroad agent. Amazing, right? Amazing stuff. How much of this is new to you? All right, these folks are unsung heroes of Black history. These are people that in the school system, they're not even talked about. You know who they talk about, all right? And this is no downplay on this, but they talk about Frederick Douglass, all right. They talk about Harriet Tubman, okay, and Sojourner Truth, all right. That's good, but there is more than those 3. A lot more. A lot more who did a lot for African Americans, who did a lot to come against slavery. All right, there was a lot of people. Okay. slavery became very unpopular in the United States. Very unpopular in a place called Europe. Very unpopular. Okay, very unpopular. So these people stood up. Regardless of the persecution, they knew that unless they did something, that it would only get worse. So in order to make it better, they had to do something. All right. Let me read this. He went to Europe as a representative to the American Peace Society in Paris. While in Europe, he tried to win British support for the abolitionists. He traveled for the abolitionist movement, from September 1849 to September 1854. He remained in Great Britain, where he traveled more than 25,000 miles and delivered more than 1,000 lectures. Like Frederick Douglass, Brown's English associates helped him to legally secure his freedom. He later returned to America in 1854 to continue his fight against slavery. Brown recruited Black soldiers in Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey to join the Union Army. After the Civil War, he became an apprentice, trained physician. However, Brown devoted much more time to writing and publishing, and his reputation therefore became linked to literature. It's a powerful man. Powerful man. There's a book he wrote. I want to read that, and we're going to go on to the next one. Brown wrote more than a dozen books and pamphlets. All right. His first book in 1847 was an autobiography narrative of William W. Brown, a fugitive slave, written by himself. Brown also authored 3 major works which were held in the highest esteem in the United States and Europe. One of his earlier historical biographies, which appeared in 1855, was titled Saint Domingo. Its revolution and its patriots. Saint Domingo, its revolution and its patriots. The book highlighted the rise and fall of the Haitian freedom fighter Toussaint Louverture. His most outstanding historical books were The Black Man, his antecedents, his genius, and his achievements, published in 1863. I'm going to try to find that one. The Rising Sun. You remember that? Huh? Or The Antecedents and Advancement of the Colored Race, published in 1874. So there's a lot of history here, a lot of history that we just don't know about. It's a shame. It's a shame that these men and women, I want to break it down a little bit. William Alexander, the Reverend William Alexander Crummell. I'm just going to read a little bit about each of them instead of reading all of it. All right. Alexander Crummell was exceptional among the many notable Black abolitionists. Although he was of pure African descent, he hailed from a long line of free-born Blacks in New York City. He never came close to the direct experience of slavery, as had some of his more notable contemporaries. Men like Frederick Douglass, Henry Highland Garnet, and Martin Delany. Yet he shared their fever for Black emancipation. And although he marched to the beat of a somewhat different drummer, he fully embraced the abolitionist spirit and activity of the era. All right. So this man was something. he was something. All right. He really embodied what the free African person of that day in the United States. He really embodied their thought, and he embodied the the hunger to see people set free from enslavement. Let me ask you, what is your vision? What is your determination? What is your plan? What can you do to help our society? All right, so our society now have not fully embraced, but have somewhat embraced the African American. All right, right now it's more of a thing of people helping people. All right, there's a lot going on. All right, there's a lot going on today. So what's your vision to help people? Not just the African American. This is Black History Month. This is why I'm doing this tribute to unsung heroes of Black history. But what's your vision? Are you a person of color? If you are, what's your vision? If you're not a person of color, still, what's your vision? Excuse me one moment. I need something to drink real quick. All right. All right. Hey, I want to show you what I'm reading from. Salute to historic Black abolitionists. It's just a paperback book. But man, is it powerful. It is powerful. All right. I want to read about Martin Delany. Martin Delany. Martin Delany. Martin Robinson Delany's inquiring mind and indomitable spirit and intellectual ability combined to make him one of the most influential and controversial leaders of the abolitionist era. During the course of his lifetime, he was an author, physician, abolitionist, colonializationist, and army officer. All right. Did you know there was, hey, look, this is back in the 1800s. He was an army officer. Okay. Oh, man. His militant Black nationalist views on the treatment of Black Americans established a unique place for him in history. Delany was born May 6, 1812, in Charlestown, West Virginia. His father, Samuel, was a slave. His mother, Patty, or Peace Delany, was freeborn. As a small child, Martin heard his grandmother, Gracie Peace, tell many proud tales of his African heritage and his royal forebears, which were among the great, would you look at this, the Gola and Mandingo tribes of Africa. In an era when Black people were bitterly scorned, Martin Delany learned to be proud of his Blackness and his heritage. In 1822, Patty Delany took her 5 children and fled to West Virginia to avoid imprisonment because a Yankee book peddler had been teaching them to read. She took her children north across the Mason-Dixie line to the free soil of Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. A year later, Samuel Delany bought his freedom and rejoined his family. Meanwhile, young Martin and the other Delany children were able to continue their education. Hey, look, this is some powerful stuff. Hey, if you want to, search out some more. I'm not going to read all about him because there's a lot. I want to move on. I want to inform you a little bit, tell you a little bit about another abolitionist named Charlotte Fortin. Charlotte Fortin, a woman. Charlotte Fortin was the granddaughter of James Fortin, an inventor, renowned abolitionist, and one of the 18th century's wealthiest Black men. She was the daughter of the equally famous and wealthy Robert Fortin and the niece of Robert Purvis, another prominent wealthy Black abolitionist. Did you know there were some wealthy Black people back in the 1800s, 1700s, and the early 1900s? I'm talking about they were wealthy according to that era. All right. They had thousands of dollars, some of them hundreds of thousands, some of them maybe even more than that. All right. Charlotte was born in Philadelphia in 1837, and her mother died when Charlotte was very young. She led a protected life. For example, she was not permitted to attend Philadelphia's segregated schools. Instead, the Fortin family's wealth allowed her to have private tutors. What about that? Private tutors, really? In order to expand her education, her father later sent her to live with another prominent Black abolitionist duo, Charles and Sarah Redmond of Salem, Massachusetts. Charlotte graduated from Higginson Grammar School in 1855. She completed additional studies in Salem Normal School in 1856. Listen, when you have vision, planning, and determination, what could hold you down? What? What could hold you down? When you come to a point to where you are tired, all right? You just tired of the nonsense. What could stop you from moving forward? I don't care what your race is. What could stop you? Nothing can stop you. Nothing. You make a decision. These people made a decision. They were abolitionists. They knew they were taking their lives into their hands. Look, they knew, man, they had to put their trust in God big time. Big time. Big time. Big time. They had to trust the Lord. They had to trust somebody, right? They had to trust the Lord. Man. Wow. 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 Let's read about Josiah Henson. Oh, excuse me. Oh, we got to take a commercial break. All right. We're gonna come right back to some of this history because these folks, they paved the way. You see, we hear about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr. There's nothing bad about that. All right. We hear about Marcus Garvey. It's nothing bad. These are some people that literally could have had their skin peeled off their bodies. Adolf Hitler wasn't the first one that did that garbage. This is extremely important for you to understand the history of what the African American or the Black man in America went through just to get where he is today and still have to persevere. And unfortunately, this is not taught in the school system. to help people have some sense of pride about where they come from, about who their ancestors are. Yet, you know what I learned in high school and in school? You know what history I learned, European history. How does that relate to me? All right, I want to read about Reverend Josiah Henson. Josiah Henson is believed to have been the model of one of history's most controversial literary works, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Henson was born into slavery on June 15, 1789 in Charles County, Maryland. He was rewarded by several different masters for his obedient service by being promoted to manager and superintendent. You know, that reminds me of Joseph in the Bible. On one occasion, while attempting to protect his drunken master, Henson was beaten so severely that he was never again able to raise his hands above his head. Yet, this model slave who so dutifully carried out the will of his various masters would one day run away to become an important figure in the abolitionist movement. Josiah Henson. He lived from 1789 to 1883. Hey, y'all need to find out about this guy. I mean, there's just a lot of information about him. There's just a lot of information. Look, I'm going to read this last excerpt about him. Let me see. Taught to read and write by one of his sons, Tom, Henson published one of the most famous slave narratives, The Life of Josiah Henson, in 1849. In 1879, a large edition, Truth Stranger Than Fiction, an autobiography of the Reverend Josiah Henson, carried a preface by Harriet Beecher Stowe, with introductory notes by Wendell Phillips. Both Stowe and Phillips were leading abolitionists in the white community. They weren't black. They were white. Josiah described in agonizing detail, the effects of slavery, and in particular, the devastating consequences of separating mothers from their children and the nasty business of the slave trade. His narrative sold more than 100,000 copies. Harriet Stowe drew from it to create her own literary bombshell, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Man, listen, these folks paved the way. Yes, they did. When nobody else would stand up, they were standing up, putting their lives on the line. All right. Did you know that this man organized the American Manual Labor Institute? He also established a lumber mill and was awarded a bronze medal by Queen Victoria in recognition of his decorative walnut cabinets, which were displayed at the Crystal Palace exhibit. In 1876, his second wife accompanied him to England, where he was presented with a gold-framed photograph of the Queen. He was also received by the Archbishop of Canterbury and Prime Minister John Russell. Listen, these folks are unsung heroes in Black history. All right? When Henson returned to the United States, he was received by President Rutherford Hayes. All right? Could you imagine? Look, this man was received. He was acknowledged by a president. How come we didn't hear about this stuff? I tell you why. Because that was the American way. That was the American way. You know, That's what it was. It was the American way. That's how it was. That's all. All right, now look, if you're a person of color, don't get angry at white people today. They didn't do anything to you. They really didn't. Yeah, their ancestors did. So what? Let it go. Get the history of people of color, African Americans, and move forward. But don't move forward in anger or racism or prejudice or any of the other stuff, right? All right, who else? Who else can I think I want to read a little bit because I only have a few minutes left. A salute to historic African kings and queens. Now, if you have some African descent, you're from if you're a person of color, you know you're from Africa. Your ancestry somewhere. You got some black blood in your downline, in your bloodline. Your family is from somewhere in Africa. Hey, don't get mad at me. All right, I'm just telling you the truth. Did you ever hear Menes, the first pharaoh of the United Kingdoms of Upper and Lower Egypt? Was Menes of Aha-Meneh. According to the Palermo Stone, an important source of historical information for the first four Egyptian dynasties, the African king Menes decisively defeated the Asian invaders and went on to unite Egypt in approximately 3100 BC. The boundaries of the kingdoms of Lower and Upper Egypt were never clearly defined. Although Lower Egypt appears to have consisted primarily of the delta and the area immediately south, while Upper Egypt comprised the remainder of the country to the first cataract or waterfall of the Nile River. After defeating the Northern Kingdom, Menes referred to himself as King of Upper and Lower Egypt, a title that was retained by succeeding pharaohs for thousands of years. All right, his dynasty began, Menes' rule began Dynasty 1, which consisted of 5 kings and is one of the 3 dynasties that make up the early dynastic period, which flourished from about 31 BC to around 2613 BC. All right. So what about this? What am I saying here? What is this saying? You know, when you look at Egypt and the television shows, we see people that are not of color. Well, Egypt, get ready for this. Egypt is in Africa. Okay. And they are people of color. Okay. They were as dark as I am. And then later on, their skins begin to, of course, lighten up as Egypt and other countries, the European countries, begin to mix. You see. What about Nefertiti? Nefertiti, whose name means the beautiful one has come, may very well have been shortchanged by many historians who stress only her physical attributes. Nefertiti was a daughter of Ai, a nobleman who was the brother of Queen Tai. Nefertiti was addressed by her people as ruler of the Nile, daughter of gods, and empress of the Mediterranean. According to contemporary archaeologists, Queen Nefertiti wife of Pharaoh, oh boy, Akhenaton, all right, may very well have wielded the major political and religious power of her day. If this is in fact so, Nefertiti was influential in establishing what was perhaps the world's first monotheistic religion, the worship of the sun god Aton. All right. So archaeologists state that evidence confirms Nefertiti's preeminence during her husband's reign. They point to the fact that temple carvings of the queen dominated those of Pharaoh Akhenaton. I hope I said his name right. I probably tore it up. All right. But listen, we got to go. We've got to run. It's been fun. I'm so glad we were able to be here with you today. I'm so glad that you were able to be with us. Hey, come back next time. Come say hi. We'd love to see you and be with you again. Take care.
like that.